Good evening and welcome to the week 2 installment of the STL Cards 2024 season scrapbook episode. I'm Kbird Tweets. You can find me there on Twitter at Kbird Tweets. You can find Peace, Love, and Baseball, which is my weekly podcast that this is under the umbrella of, on Instagram at peace.love.baseball and on Facebook on our Facebook page called Peace, Love, and Baseball. Still putting out those weekly episodes of Peace, Love, and Baseball. Have no fear. But this is in addition to that and will be in your Peace, Love, and Baseball podcast feed tomorrow morning, wherever you get your podcasts. You can always find it there as well. Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you're at. Hopefully we're there too. Quick announcement before we get into the recap of week 2 of the full regular season for the Cardinals. The Peace, Love, and Baseball merch store is open. Yes, I am proudly wearing my Tommy Edman shirt, which is in the store. They're starting to sell. People are starting to see them, catch wind, get excited about it. So get your Tommy Edman merch. We're going to drop another Tommy Edman shirt, a Tommy 2 bags shirt soon, as well as a really fun Lance Lynn shirt that I've got coming your way. So keep an eye on that. We'll stick it in the show notes. And you can find it, of course, if you find me anywhere on social media. I have been a little under the weather. So if my voice sounds different or weird, I'm sure if you've never heard me before, you're like, I literally can't tell. But man, colds just hit you hard. And the worst thing about them is they don't go away. So I'm still feeling it a little bit. Much like the Cardinals offense, I was under the weather this week. And let's get right down to it. The Cardinals ended the second full week of the Major League Baseball season at a record of 7-9 overall. They went 1-3 versus the Phillies at home and 1-3 versus the Diamondbacks on the road in Arizona. Our first game of the week came on April 8th. This was the first game of the Philly series at Busch Stadium. Phillies starter Spencer Turnbull went 6 innings with just 2 hits allowed, no earned runs, and 6 strikeouts. Our guy Miles Mikolas had a solid enough start. He went 6 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, and 3 strikeouts. Herrera hit his second home run of the season. Ivan Herrera getting a little more playing time after Wilson got hit on the hand last week and was relieved of catching duties to fully recover. Walker and Wynn picked up RBIs, but Brandon Marsh, love to hate him here in Cardinals Nation. He homered late off of Giovanni Gallegos to tie the game in the 9th inning. And then Ryan Helsley gave it up to the heart of the Phillies order in extra innings for a 5-3 loss to the Phils in 10. Even so, we caught the MLB debut of catcher Pedro Pages, who had his first big league at bats, and he caught an inning versus the Marlins after he took an Uber from where he was at, which was 3.5 hours away in AAA in Indianapolis at the time. So that was a really fun story. If you missed that, he had to take an Uber, a 3.5 hour Uber ride from where he was at playing in AAA with Indianapolis to Busch Stadium. And it said in the article that his Uber driver didn't even know about the occasion until he was dropping him off at the doors of Busch Stadium. He was like, "Oh, hey, what are you doing here?" But he called all of his family and told him "Hey, I got my call up to the bigs." So that was a fun highlight nonetheless. April 9th was a better day in Cardinals Nation. Am I right? Sonny Gray made his awaited debut for the Cardinals versus Zach Wheeler, co-ace of the Phillies. Gray was on a pitch count of 65, and there was some speculation around why are we putting him out there? Is it too soon? He very much advocated for it and said, "Hey, I'm ready. I don't need to go make a AAA start. I'd rather work through it and go for it here at the bigs." So he cruised through 5 innings, throwing exactly 64 pitches on that 65 pitch count. He allowed 5 hits, 0 earned runs, and struck out 5. Alec Burleson came through with a 2-hit day with a walk and a run scored, and Mason Wynn keeps hitting. We're going to talk a lot about Mason Wynn today. He set Victor Scott 2 up for his first big league RBI, which was a sacrifice fly in the 5th inning of this April 9th game. Gorman has a 2-hit day, including his 3rd home run of the season, to get 3 runs on the board total for the Birds. And that was all they would need, miraculously. The bullpen lined up perfectly from Libby to Kittredge to Romero to Helsley, continuing to shut out the Phillies offense for a 3-0 Cardinals win. I know these high-scoring games are fun, and we're going to get to those too because we did have some of that action. But these are the kind of games that I love, and I loved that this was like a true pitcher's duel. I heard today's game referred to as a pitcher's duel by the Cardinals media a lot, and it was just driving me nuts because it just wasn't that kind of a game to me. But this was that April 9th game, Sonny Gray, baby. We're going to talk more about him later too. Let's hit up April 10th, which was the final game of the Phillies series. Aaron Nola, another very high profile pitcher for the Phillies, against Lance Lynn in the rain. And a tough day for Victor Scott with mistakes on both sides of the ball that were costly opportunities for the Cardinals in this close game. Lynn went 5 innings, though. He allowed just 1 hit, and both of the runs that were on his watch were actually unearned runs, more so due to errors from Scott and then Lance Lynn. Little PFP trip up there. Lance walked 4. He struck out 6 for a total of 94 pitches through his 5 innings. And then Andre Palante. Andre Palante has not been his best this week. Like, is it just me, or is the death ball, the Andre Palante death ball, is not a death ball? It's like more of like a hanging curve. I'm not really sure what's off there. Get pitching enthusiasts, hit me up, drop something in the chat. Let me know your thoughts. Would love to hear it. But he allowed 3 hits, 2 earned runs, and a walk without recording an out when he came in relief of this in this game, before Zach Thompson came in and stopped the bleeding. Love having him out of the bullpen, by the way. He moves to the bullpen as Sonny Gray comes back into the rotation. And Kittredge then came in to clean it up as well, and they were able to hold the Phillies to 4 runs. Unfortunately, 4 was enough. As Aaron Nola went 6 innings, he allowed just 3 hits, 2 earned runs with 3 walks and 3 strikeouts. And not sure if you watched this game. I was listening to it, and the radio broadcast commented a lot throughout the course of the game how Nola seemed really kind of bothered by the rain, much more again than I guess Lance Lynn, who just seems like he's out there like dogging it. Just nothing seems to phase him. He's just that kind of a guy, right? But Nola definitely seemed a little like off, like he was struggling through it, but ultimately did not affect his performance enough, and he was able to get it done. Those 2 earned runs that he did give up to the Cardinals were home runs. Ivan Herrera, so hot right now. We love to see it. He managed to get his 3rd home run of the season off of Nola in the 2nd. And known power hitter Brendan Donovan used that new dad strength to get his 1st home run of the season in the 3rd. Nolan Arenado, doubters, quiet down, sit down, hold up. He picked up a 2-out RBI off of Phillies reliever Soto, but that's where the offense stopped and ultimately fell 4-3 in the April 10th game to the Phillies. April 11th. Now, this was an off day for the Cardinals. Not only was it my sister's birthday, shout out Katie Ray, happy birthday. I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to watch the Cardinals on your birthday, but at least they couldn't lose on your birthday, right? It was an off day as the Cardinals traveled to the desert to take on the Arizona Diamondbacks, but it did not come without excitement within the Cardinals organization. Nolan Gorman, Bird's Bird of the Week last week, he is from the Phoenix area, and as they traveled back to his hometown area, he proposed to his girlfriend Madison, and the two got engaged on the off day on April 11th. So huge congrats to Norm and Madison. April 12th brought us to another off the field gift, actually, that I want to talk about before we get into the game action. Lance Lynn's wife, I have mentioned her before. Her name is Diamond. She is an absolute gem of a social media follow. She's just so fun. She's hilarious. She should have a reality TV show. She shared on her Instagram that she has chickens. They have chickens at their home in Southern Illinois. And she shared that she thinks Lance Lynn is afraid of their chickens. And this was like personally a highlight for me this week in Cardinals baseball, because I am a fellow fearer of chickens, ladies and gents and friends. I deeply fear birds, particularly chickens. I understand the irony, absolutely, but it is very much a thing. And I actually like seriously injured myself because when I was young, I had already somewhat of an injury. And I think my sister was like 3 or 4 at the time. Yeah, the same one that had a birthday. She picked up a chicken and she threw it at me because she knew I was so afraid, and I ran like a bat out of hell and injured myself further. So fun times. Anyway, I'd never felt more like personally connected to a Major League Baseball player than I did with Lance Lynn, fellow badass, also afraid of chickens. Producer June is back. I just made the comment as I came down. If you've listened to Peace, Love, and Baseball before, you know my animals sometimes make audio appearances. And I just came down here to record, and I said to my husband, who was going out to do something and was not going to be around, that like, oh, I don't have any pet producers with me anymore. What a shame. And producer June, who is sometimes afraid of stairs, she picks and chooses, is standing at the top of the stairs crying at me right now. So I apologize. I'm a little distracted. Little distracted. Producer June, come on down. Come on down. Come here, June. She wants to hear about how the Cardinals did because she didn't spend enough time with me on the couch already watching them this week. Come on down, June. Don't be afraid of the chickens. Okay, let's get to this April 12th game because it was a good one. The Cardinals win 9-6 over the Diamondbacks in the first game of the series, and this is exactly the kind of game that the St. Louis Cardinals of 2024 and definitely of 2023 are built to win. And we're gonna need to see more games like this if the Cardinals are going to be in contention, is my overall thought. The Steven Matz. Let's start with Steven Matz. He was having a pretty good start until he wasn't. And that also seems to be somewhat of a theme with our starters. So we'll get there. We'll talk about that. But he went 4 2/3, allowing 8 hits, 4 runs, albeit only 1 earned run. There were defensive errors by both Wynn and Matz. We saw Gio a little earlier in this game, Gallegos, than usual, and the Diamondbacks added on another couple of runs against him. But the Cardinals offense was grinding it out. They grabbed those pepper grinders. The return of Lars Nootbaar comes on April 12th. Here we are. He made his debut of 2024, and he hit his first home run, which was a 2-run blast in the third, but not before Nolan Arenado hit his first home run since mid-August of 2023 in the first inning of this game off of D-back starter Brandon Pfaadt. Nato actually went 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs in this game. B. Donnie, Brendan Donovan, had a badass triple and an RBI, as did Mason Wynn, who had a multi-hit, multi-RBI game. Goldie and Victor Scott, too, also picked up RBIs. In fact, Victor Scott had a great game after a tough one just a couple days earlier. And we also saw a Jordan Walker double with a pinch runner for him. Then Michael Ciani came in. That run would ultimately score in the late innings as well. The back half of the bullpen was solid again, from Romero to Kittredge to Helsley. Damn, don't you love to see that lineup? Love it. That high-scoring win felt so good because that is what the offense is more than capable of when they are on. A 9-6 Cardinals win. We're going to get a little bit more into the thick of it with the offense and the potential issues there. So again, if you're on YouTube and you want to hit up the live chat, feel free to leave me your thoughts, comments, and we'll toss them in here as we get deeper into that analysis as we go through game by game. April 13th was not such a lucky 13th for the Cardinals. Kyle Gibson went out there, took the ball like he does. He went 6 innings, ultimately giving up 4 earned runs, but only 4 hits. The real damage was done, of course, when my guy, I love him, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., so high on vibes. Love that guy. He hit a 3-run bomb off of Gibson for a big one. I mean, that was pretty much it. He got that bomb in the 6th, and it was my observation, maybe yours too, you let me know, that Kyle had been walking a fine line kind of all game long. I felt like that moment, those runs scored one way or another, were imminent. So let's talk about Kyle Gibson for a second. That's what I wrote here that kind of got me off guard. Let's talk about Kyle Gibson for a second. You guys, Kyle Gibson is, let's just not look on paper. Let's not look at the hard facts. Let's rip away the science and the numbers and the data and the analytics. Kyle Gibson is the guy that I want to root for so badly. They showed great coverage of him leading the efforts, charitable efforts for the whole team. He is the vice president of Adam Wainwright's charity Big League Impact. So he led charitable efforts for the team out there in Arizona on the off day. I mean, he is just the guy. You can tell, like, the way that he shows up, the way that he carries himself. He is the kind of guy that I'm sure, like, I would just absolutely love to be around. I'm sure he is an incredible human being, and he's a major league pitcher. So, first of all, anytime that I'm critical of any Major League Baseball player in any way, shape, or form, I have to, like, preface it with that because I just think it's on some level a little ridiculous to be heavily critical of athletes who are performing at this level, especially someone like Kyle Gibson who has done it year over year. Like, he's had a very substantial career under his belt at this point. He's obviously got more than enough to show for it, but he's not the guy that we need at the point that he is in our rotation. Again, if there were different guys, like, he doesn't fit in to the stack, right? Yes, thank you, Bob. You feel me, you hear me. I want to root for him so badly, but the fact of the matter is that at least half of his starts, you're not getting quality starts. He is going to give up 4 or more earned runs. That is the writing on the wall. And for whatever reason, the Cardinals data and analytics has figured it out that, like, that's fine. We can work with that. But they know that that's what is to be expected. And that's why I say, like, simply put, this team is built to win high scoring games because they are, like, with the pitched contact pitching staff, with these guys who are going to have easily an over 4, maybe an over 5 ERA, like Kyle Gibson. It is what it is. So I don't think there's any reason to be, like, overly critical of it because you do know what you're getting with him. But that's where our frustration as a fan base also lies. Okay. I'm going to put that to bed for now. Just get a little of that frustration out. Again, feel free to work it out amongst yourselves as well. Keep sharing. In this April 13th game, Gorman doubled, Walker tripled. These are good things. A little bit of offense, just not enough. By the way, the Cardinals do lead the league in triples with 5. Does seem like we've seen a lot of fun triples thus far in the season. They lead in triples along with the Reds and the Rockies. The Rockies also lead in triples. So, do with that information what you will. But Newt picked up an RBI. Wynn had yet another multi-hit game and an RBI. But ultimately, they went 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position, and that won't do it, especially against a competitive team like the Diamondbacks. Cardinals lose 4-2 on the 13th. April 14th, today's game was actually the first time that the Cardinals were shut out this season in a 5-0 loss. So not exactly a milestone that I wanted to be celebrating with you today, but Michaelis went 4 2/3 with 3 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. The Diamondbacks scored all 5 runs in the 5th inning. And that's something to take note of. That's a theme that's developing. No Cardinals offense to speak of. So let's dive in on that a little bit. We've kind of dropped hints of that throughout the week, right? It's becoming a bit of a pattern. Let's talk about the Diamondbacks scoring all those runs, right, in one inning first, because this is the first pattern that I, like, immediately was like, I have seen this movie before, and it was in the last week with the pitching situation, right? And all of the offense from the opposing team coming more or less all at once. So it is early. I hate to say anything at this point is becoming a bit of a pattern because of how early it is in the grand scheme of things, but teams are capitalizing against our starting pitchers right around the halfway through the second time of the lineup. So basically once you get to, like, the thick of it, the heart of the order, that 3, 4, 5 spot where, like, the best hitters are at, right when you get there, or the third time through, which is when good hitters make adjustments. Like, I know to some extent that is to be expected, but it's also expected that here's the problem. It's also expected that your innings eater starters, which is what we got. It's what we signed up for, that they are going to get at least 2.5 times through any given lineup. So the problem lies in that good hitters are generally going to capitalize on these guys after a time or two through, particularly these pitch to contact guys. So that seems a little bit like a high level observation. I guess I certainly don't think I'm the only one who's had this thought, like it has to be too obvious of a problem, right? But it also just seems like an obvious problem. Am I right? Let me know what you think. But ultimately, we can only blame the pitching so much because that hasn't been the most glaringly obvious issue thus far. And man, I hate to come back to this because this is where like the scars of the 2023 seasons past is actually they're running a little too deep. So in this particular game today, the Diamondbacks only scored in four, or not in this particular game, in the season series, in all three games. They scored in only 4 total innings of the series. And Al Hrabowski mentioned this on the post game today. They scored only in 4 innings of all 3 of those games. So that proves that it only takes a few big moments to win an entire series, right? I mean, they were very competitive even in the game that they lost. This is exactly where the Cardinals are missing out. The Cardinals are 24th out of the 30 Major League Baseball teams. They are 24th in team batting average currently and an on-base percentage. And they're 23rd in team OPS and with runners in scoring position. The runners in scoring position is one that runs deep from last season for sure. Not great. The problem is, what is the problem? I think it's hard to pinpoint. I go back to something that I kept harping on last year, which is the inconsistency of the lineup. Why such inconsistency? This is an offense that is pretty damn similar to last year. So it's hard not to compare it and see how big of a problem this was. Although, the pitching was the more long-term glaring issue. But it's a problem that is certainly carried over from last year. Still not a super consistent lineup, which has certainly come from, challenges with injuries and such. But it seems like there may be something off in the general lineup strategy. I don't know. Do you look at the lineup daily and think like, I would have done this differently? I don't necessarily even think that. The one thing that I'm going to mention, and again, like it's too small of a sample size to be like, this is the problem. But hey, that's what we're here to talk about and kind of just have some fun speculating. I get that Brandon Crawford is going to play from time to time. I have an immense amount of respect for this man in his Major League Baseball career. So again, I have such a hard time like being critical and or saying like I don't want to see him play because he's Brandon freaking Crawford. But I did not expect that like he has started 4. He has started and played the entirety of 4 out of 16 games so far. Actually, I think he was replaced by Mason Wynn in one of those games, but you feel me. He's played the majority of 4 of the games so far, particularly with Mason Wynn contributing at the level that he is offensively. So that in itself is like a thing that's like one thing that I'm particularly noticing. The Ivan Herrera and the Wilson Contreras thing. Which one do we use? We want both. Why do we have 2 bat first catchers? How did this happen? We didn't trade Herrera in the offseason for pitching. Why did we sign Wilson Contreras through this huge contract? Love him. Love him. He's my catcher. Obsessed with him. Having a guy like him on your team. Oh, I love it in my heart. But it don't make sense. It don't make all the sense. And yeah, it's just another one of those things where it's like it's providing the challenges to make a consistent lineup and to maybe like see what works and allow these guys to settle in and understand their roles on both sides of the ball. So I don't know. That's just something that like was glaringly obvious to me last year. And I was expecting to see more consistency. And we had heard messaging from Ollie Marmol with that too, that we would see more consistency. And that's something he was really looking forward to. And I was like, amen. Ollie Marmol's been listening to Peace, Love, and Baseball. But here we are. I'm not seeing it yet. I'm not saying it won't happen. And again, this is more than anything an episode to celebrate and enjoy and be, overall positive about a team that we love watching. Because if you're watching them, even if you hate watching them, you love to watch them and you're enjoying it and it's entertainment. So, I don't want to get too down in the dumps. So it's a perfect time to move on to our scrapbook moment of the week. Now, with your help in a poll on Twitter, we narrowed it down from the numerous highlights of this past week. There were lots of highlights from the return of Nootbaar to Arenado's first home run and hopefully the start of a resurgence to all of the winning that is happening on both sides of the ball. You know what I mean? But with the help of your votes, this week's scrapbook moment of the week goes to Sunny Gray Day. It is no surprise that us as Cardinals fans are more excited than anything to have a pitcher of the caliber of Sonny Gray in our starting rotation, and that he was able to make it back, relatively early on in the season, only missed a start or two. He had those 64 pitches in his 5 innings of work, striking out 5, allowed 5 hits, and that he had the defense locked in behind him, which is just no coincidence. Again, I can only speak to it at the level of like the vibe level. I'm not on the field. I've never played professional ball, but I have worked professionally in entertainment, and that is heavily relied on the people around you to ultimately make the product that you're putting out successful. And with a pitcher of that caliber on the mound, that whole team looked different on both sides of the ball. Tell me it didn't. They looked different. They shut out the Phillies, and they only needed to score 3 runs. And they had to score those runs against Zach Wheeler. Sunny Gray Day, baby, is your scrapbook moment of the week. Remember that one. No matter what happens the rest of the season, these scrapbook moments of the week are the ones that we are keeping right here for us to look back on and enjoy as true highlights as baseball fans, as St. Louis Cardinals fans. Let's move on to Bird's Bird of the Week. Very exciting segment. Who will it be? Last week, it was Nolan Gorman. I told you we're going to see just as much power as you would expect out of Nolan Gorman. The man was born to hit. Then he went and got engaged this week, kept hitting home runs and doing the things. But this week's Bird's Bird of the Week, you know it. It is Mason Blaze Winn. He is winning all over the field. Let me tell you just a few things Mason Winn is doing well, since the national media will not. Did you see Major League Baseball? This was probably towards the beginning of the week, but Major League Baseball posted their early predictions for Rookie of the Year. And they had 5 players in the AL column and 5 in the NL column. And at least one of the players, Paul Skeens, was on the list, right? Who is not played a day in the major leagues. And we do not know. There's no reason at this point in time to think that he will play in the major leagues, or at least long enough to be considered for Rookie of the Year, while Mason Winn is over here leading his team in batting average. So yeah, we have players who may not play a day in the major leagues this year that were on that list of early Rookie of the Year contenders, but not Mason Winn. The Major League Baseball national media disrespect of the Cardinals lives on. Baseball is back. I don't know. Is that just me? Is that me as a salty Cardinals fan? You're all Cardinals fans that are probably listening, so you probably feel the same way, but confirmation bias. It's not just me, right? Anyway, Mason Winn is hitting .349. He leads the team in batting average. The next closest with more than 10 plate appearances is Ivan Herrera, by the way, with .294. He's batting .294. That's the next highest on the team. Mason Winn is batting .349. Yo. He is 3rd in on-base percentage behind only Wilson Contreras and Brendan Donovan. He's 4th in slug and OPS behind Herrera, Contreras, and Donovan. He is 2nd in hits, in total hits. He has 14 hits, or I'm sorry, 15 hits behind only Nolan Arenado, by the way, who, again, Arenado doubters, shamers, just back off. Nolan Arenado still leads the team in hits with 18, by the way. Mason Winn, back to Mason Winn, has 2 of the Cardinals' only 4 stolen bases. I was kind of surprised. The Cardinals have the least amount of stolen bases in Major League Baseball, tied with the Cubs for that, I believe. But Mason has 2 of them. I'll give you one guess who has the other 2. One of which came with some sick swim moves. You saw that sick swim move from Mason Winn when he stole the base and he got called out initially. And then they reviewed it, and he was absolutely safe using his amazing athleticism to outswim the tag at second base. I think that's this picture up here in the corner, this one right underneath my hand is right when he sat up from that slide, but he was calling himself safe all the way. That was one of my favorite moments of any game from this week, and that was like in a game that they lost. So again, always a reason to tune in to Cardinals baseball. Not to mention Mason Wynn, he has elite defense. We know that, right? We have come to expect it. That's actually something, let's just talk about this really quick, is something that I have noticed is that the guys that you would expect to hit are not necessarily hitting, but the guys you wouldn't expect to hit are hitting. Ivan Herrera, Mason Wynn. That's basically it. No. Brennan Donovan, I mean, you expect him to do all the things. Is there anyone who, I mean, he just gives it to us all. He'll certainly be featured one of these times. But anyway, the guys who also you might have been worried about defensively, Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker, like they're stepping it up. And even Alec Burleson has looked better defensively. So I like to think, again, maybe naive of me, maybe too high level, but I like to think that, spring training, ramping up off season is all more focused on working on the things that are not your strengths, right? Do you really think Jordan Walker is not going to mash the hell out of baseballs for the next decade plus? He's going to, but he really needed to work on being a big league outfielder. And we're seeing that from him now, which is amazing. I didn't even talk about that. Highlight for sure of this week was we saw at least one. I can't remember if they both were this week. I think one was in the week previous, but he has made a couple game-changing plays out there, looking way more like a big league outfielder. And Mason Wynn, on the other side of that, we know he is defensively elite. That is what we expect to see. His arm can eat. Sometimes it eats a little too much, but again, like that's been few and far between and to be expected to some extent as he's working to harness it in his young career. But it's already made a difference in at least two plays that I've seen when that arm gets it out across to Goldie. But that's what you expect from him. But we are seeing him evolve offensively in a way that honestly we weren't sure would even happen. Like, can he hang at the big league level at the plate? And he's the best hitter on the team right now. So I think it's kind of cool that we're seeing the guys, Jordan Walker, excel defensively, Alec Burleson excel defensively, Mason Wynn excel offensively in ways we didn't necessarily see or expect them to. And all we need now is for all those things to come together. Anytime you pick up one skill set or something, you try to strengthen yourself in one area, often an area that you were strong in kind of slips, just goes to the wayside, and then you got to bring it back in and get all those balls back up in the air. So let's keep positive headspace. Hopefully that's where it's at. And there's still way more than enough season to get everything clicking and firing on all cylinders, which brings me to the final segment of our STL Cards Season Scrapbook Week 2 edition, and that is the vibe check. We got to check in on the vibes. We're going to do this every week. I'm here with your official vibe check. This is the only official vibe check that I know of in Major League Baseball, right here on Peace, Love, and Baseball from me. The vibe check is going to be very similar to last week. If you were with us last week at our first episode, the vibes, the word that we gave you for the vibes was hopeful. And I feel like this is a perfect time to kind of use that word again, wrap it up with that. Very similar to last week. These are close competitive games. There have been 2, maybe 3 games that were not like super competitive games from this team. But even those came down to pretty specific instances of, again, like teams capitalizing in really 1, maybe 2 innings. There's a lot to be excited about in general around the team, and there is no reason not to stay hopeful. Keep those hopeful vibes as long as we don't let the scars show from last season. I know that is such a huge part of what is keeping Cardinals Nation down in the dumps and why we go from like, I'm fine, and just dive off a cliff so quickly. Have you seen that meme? What is it from? Oh my gosh, Hercules, of Hades in Hercules. And he's like, it's a meme, but also like it's in the Disney movie Hercules. And Hades is like, he's got fire for hair, and he'll be like, it's fine, I'm cool, it's fine. And then all of a sudden his hair like fires up. That's how I feel like every time they lose the lead or they leave runners in scoring position. I'm immediately like Hades, like my hair fire just goes crazy, and I'm like, "I'm fine, it's cool, it's fine, no." So I feel you, I'm with you, like, the rage comes back so real and so fast, but there are some key differences, which we outlined last week as well, so don't let those scars flare up just yet. Okay. This week's episode of Peace, Love, and Baseball, your regular episode of Peace, Love, and Baseball, is going to come at you on Wednesday instead of Tuesday this week. I told you I've been sick. I have to get my wisdom teeth out tomorrow, and I'm really afraid. Not that anyone cares about that because it's not baseball related, but that's part of the reason that the episode is going to come out a day late. So don't come banging on my internet door. It will be there for you, and I'm very committed to that. It'll come at you on Wednesday, and it will be another team feature episode. So keep an eye out for that. Again, it'll populate in your feed if you're following on Spotify, on Amazon Music, on Apple Podcasts, or here on YouTube on the K Bird Tweets YouTube channel. So hit that subscribe button, rate, review, be kind, keep spreading the good vibes, because that's what we do here at Peace, Love, and Baseball. And keep the faith, because I will see you next Sunday, come hell or high water, come win or losing record, for the STL Cards 2024 season scrapbook series. Have a great night, y'all.